Cheap electricity. We all would like to have clean, cheap energy, therefore according to the government the majority of Canadians stand beside the idea to abandon the fossil fuel, crude oil, coal, and natural gas and switch to so-called green energy like wind turbines, solar panels, bioenergy. Theoretically this idea is very attractive, however the use of natural gas cannot be abandoned at all. Matter of fact, the use of natural gas helps the production of green energy. Also, it is a proven fact the green energy is more expensive than the one produced by the old way. Here is why. Facts about wind turbines. The spin on Ontario's wind turbines. How Ontario's wind turbines work. The Star. By John Spears, business reporter. For better or worse, wind turbines have become the symbol of renewable energy in Ontario because of their sheer physical presence. After hydroelectric power, they're also the main producers of renewable electricity in Ontario. Here's how they work. The structure: big turbines need a firm anchor. That means a reinforced concrete base up to 5 meters in diameter. A crane then lowers the main tower into place. Towers are made of rolled steel, concrete, or a mixture of the two. They're usually built in 3 sections. When fitted together, the larger towers reach about 80 meters high, although the biggest towers can go up to 100 meters. Sitting atop the tower is the nacelle, the cone-shaped apparatus that acts as the hub for the blades. The nacelle houses the generator itself, along with a braking system to keep the turbine from spinning too fast. It also houses a yaw drive that turns the nacelle so it's facing directly into the wind. The nacelle can rotate 360 degrees. The turbine blades are made of fiberglass or carbon fiber. They're up to 45 meters in length, so they reach up to 125 meters above the ground at the top of their sweep. The power output depends on the size of the turbine. The turbine at Exhibition Place in Toronto is small by today's standards, producing 750 kilowatts of power at full speed. Many big turbines now being erected in Ontario are produce up to 2.5 megawatts. Offshore turbines can be even bigger. Location and spacing: generally, developers try to scatter the turbines so they're not directly behind each other when the prevailing winds are blowing. If they are directly in line, they need to be 10 turbine blade lengths apart to avoid turbulence. If they're staggered, 3 to 7 blade lengths is sufficient spacing. Economics: a turbine with a feed-in tariff contract receives 13.5 cents a kilowatt hour, or $135 a megawatt hour for its output. 1 megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. A 2 megawatt turbine running at full speed, 24 hours a day for a year, would therefore produce 17,520 megawatt hours of power. Assuming it operates at 35% capacity, in the real world it will produce about 6,132 megawatt hours. At $135 a megawatt hour, that means revenue of $827,820 annually. Assuming a more conservative capacity of 27%, it would generate revenue of $638,604. Offsetting the revenue are very high capital costs. The cost of purchasing, erecting, financing and connecting a turbine runs at about $2,500 a kilowatt of capacity, although prices are declining and in some cases are now below $2,000 a kilowatt, according to CanWEA. That means a 2 megawatt turbine costs $4 million to $5 million to install. Included in the cost is rent of more than $19,000 a megawatt paid to the landowner where the turbine is erected. That works out to about $38,000 annually for a 2 megawatt turbine. Not counted in these costs is the price of having backup plants standing by to fill in the gaps when wind speeds oscillate or die. Increasing numbers of wind turbines require more quick-starting, gas-fired generating stations, which are paid to be on standby even if they're not operating. Besides what you heard above, let's see what are the disadvantages of wind turbines. Every turbine destroys 3 acres of land, roughly 21,000 acres of farmland lost forever. Ontario turbines are closer to people than any place in the world. Turbine neighbors suffer from turbine noise and wind turbine syndrome, which can be life-threatening. Some residents are abandoning their homes at an unprecedented pace. The fortunate are bought out by the wind companies, but must sign a gag order. Wind companies pay a lower tax rate than other corporations. Turbines worth an estimated $5 million have been assessed at an estimated $60,000. Have farmers who sign lease contracts sign a gag order. Are exempted from municipal bylaws, building permits, proximity to highways, drainage issues. Have weight restrictions on roads and bridges lifted during construction of wind projects. May destroy protected wetlands. May cause death or harm to endangered species. Are exempt from the $10,000 fine in the event of destroying an eagle's nest. Override the Heritage Act. Besides all you heard up to now, the biggest disadvantage of the wind turbine is as follows: the vulnerability of our grid. When produced, power has to be used immediately, there's no technology to store it for a later time. There is excess power almost every hour of every day, and Ontario scrambles to find a state/province that will take it. Depending on their power needs at the time, we either give it away, spill it, pay to take it, spill it, or charge a very low rate. Because wind power is so unpredictable, the IESO staff are continually manipulating the grid, telling the nuclear, gas and hydro suppliers to adjust their output accordingly, and the excess is then sent to Quebec, Manitoba, and the States. In 10 to 20 years. The Niagara Falls hydro generating stations are 100 years old, but wind turbines are good for only 10 to 20 years. Each turbine construction consists of 800 tons of cement for support, approximately 250 tons of unrecyclable materials, 700 liters of hydraulic fuel and 600 kilograms of rare earth metals. Multiply these numbers by 7,700 and Ontario is facing a potential ecological conundrum. There are no bonds posted to ensure these turbines will be dismantled at the end of their life cycle. It is estimated that a turbine, depending on size, will cost $400,000 to $1 million to dismantle. Given that wind companies are predominantly foreign, change ownership or go bankrupt, it is quite realistic to expect 100s or 1,000s of dead turbines in 20 years and left standing. This is happening already. Wind companies usually don't fix or dismantle broken turbines, and Ontario already has many non-functioning turbines. If companies won't dismantle a couple of turbines now, what about the future ones? The Liberals have no plans as to where to dispose these materials, nor have indicated that wind companies will be responsible for the costs of building the landfill sites or depots. One can only assume that the cost to dispose 7,700 turbines will be covered by the people of Ontario. In 10 to 20 years, we could be faced with a landscape of old, rusted out, broken down turbines.
Slicing through the forest, a 60-meter wind turbine blade, one of 3 that will top a tower dwarfing the tall pine trees. The goal is to triple generating capacity with many more, all part of Germany's plan to abandon nuclear power and switch to renewable energy. You might think environmentalists would be happy, but some are not.
We have always been against nuclear power and for renewable energy, but these projects here are purely profit-driven and devastating for nature.
The countryside echoes with the low thumping sound of the giant blades. The churches, which always used to be the tallest buildings as a sign of submission to God, now lie in the shadow of the government's ecological ambitions. There's a fierce debate in local towns and villages over the idea of developing more wind power. Some people support it, saying that the extra electricity could be sold on for a profit to neighboring regions. So the opponents say that the wind turbines aren't just tearing up the countryside, they're also straining the social fabric. A company providing the wind farm says they need to be built near the big automotive and other factories in the south, many of which relied on nuclear power before.
Right now, at the moment, with a new wind farm development in Germany, we have done a lot of developments in the north, and the government would like to have more wind power in the north, in the offshore sector, for example. Well, that means that you have to transport the electricity the whole way from North Germany to South Germany, and that is, of course, very expensive.